JB here, JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Wednesday, October 5th, 9:15 on this fine morning. Talk really quick about markets. Some names I'm looking at go from there. S&P futures up over about 3/4% here. A reversal from yesterday. Changed those headlines. Market bouncing on what? No news, no catalyst. Just like yesterday's sell-off. There's quotes out, headlines out there saying it was renewed U.S.-China tensions. There was some issue with like some shipping port BS, whatever it was, whatever narrative was created to rationalize USA's gap down. You had bank earnings yesterday, so markets are gapping lower in anticipation of bank earnings, but the bank earnings, in my opinion, weren't. To me, they're not as. Not saying not critical, but to me, the AI space and tech area is more impactful in regards to the market than the banking sector right now. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, we saw a reversal off the lows. So 945 markets found the bottom. Ironically enough, the SPY hit 653.07 on Friday. We hit 653.17 yesterday morning. So once we hit that 653 handle, probably a key spot. So I'll have to be watching that. Found some buyers, and then we just melted higher into the afternoon. By like 12:30 or 1 o'clock, we were almost green on the SPY. And then you look at the headlines again, and Powell came on at the conference, the economic forum or whatever it was in Philadelphia, the annual event. He made some comments, nothing earth shattering. Did talk about the Fed halting the runoff of the balance sheet. So that would be somewhat dovish, I guess you would say, because it's somewhat unexpected, but don't think it did too much. He kind of held pat on his pretty much saying that the Fed's going to cut rates at the meeting next week. So nothing changed there. But the headlines would say markets rallied back into, reversed in the morning because of Powell's dovish comments. But it's like Powell didn't even make comments when the bounce was happening. But anyway, again, just kind of shows you it's like headlines usually are made after to justify the moves that happen. Anyway, but then, of course, 3:30 comes out, and then you have POTUS coming out with another tweet talking about China, soybeans, and cooking oil. And the S&P dropped about 0.5% in a matter of 30 seconds. Frustrating, right? I mean, you sit there, watch some of these names, which are looking strong into the close, and then to have that little blip come out, just frustrating. But it's the market we've been dealing with. The good thing is it seems like the market's kind of like less it's less of a reaction than it used to be back in April. And so the dip was bought pretty quick. And then obviously you see the reversal here today. So now there's not much in the way of headlines. Overnight, ASML, the Netherlands, the Dutch company, reported earnings. Decent beat on revenue EPS side. The issue with ASML is the guidance. So they've had some snafus with guidance the last 2 quarters. This quarter doesn't look too bad, right? So decent guidance, I think like 15% growth, which doesn't sound like much, but considering what it did guided the last 2 quarters, good enough. And the concerns weren't even around growth anywhere besides China. So because of that, you see it's gapping higher, not substantially higher. I mean, the premium is going to get crushed because of the calls. The priciness of the calls only at $50, but it's enough to kind of give a sigh of relief to the other names because the 2 quarters ASML had that weak guidance. Names got crushed. So now overnight we have TSM. They'll report earnings tomorrow morning. I mean, earnings will be out overnight, just like ASML. So hopefully they can kind of alleviate or at least not post any surprise miss or give any kind of pause to the market. And then I think maybe we get up to 670 into the end of the week. I don't like gaps. To me, I prefer gaps down to the downside and have reversals as opposed to upside gaps because typically a lot of times we get some of these fades or profit taking at the open. So wouldn't be surprised if we have some kind of pull here at the open, maybe 665 or so, find some support. But like I just said before, I just wrote those annotations last week or added another line on the SPY. 658 looks like a key spot here on the SPY. Wouldn't rule out any kind of crazy shenanigans today. I don't think we'll get there today, but if we do, that'd be a spot where I'd be open against some put hedges. And yields, right? Yields dipping. So that's another good sign. The VIX, everybody wants to talk about the fear and greed index and the VIX hit highs not seen since April yesterday. Again, I think more of it's like a function of the market we've been in. And, just unfortunately, when profit taking happen, it happens relatively quickly. So I think that's some of what we've seen on Friday and yesterday. And then, a greed reset button. It's always good to have that button hit and then it kind of resets expectations and then we get some bounces here. All right. That's quick on overall markets. So now just on some individual names, HPQ, I mean, the least sexiest name out there. So finally rallied Monday, so reversed Friday's losses. I think it was down 7% on Friday, rallied 7% on Monday, and then resumed yesterday, up another nearly 5%. You had HSBC upgrading the stock to $30. I don't know if that was some of the catalyst, but I'll take it. When you have a name like HBQ, where the market, the option market is pricing in a very small move, like a 2% implied move, when you get a 4% move, it equals multi-bagger. So thankful, lucky to get those spec lottos last week. I locked some of those 28 strikes in for 100%, then 200%, and then some more at 300%. And then I went and got some November strikes because I started looking at the chart. It has a potential golden cross where you have the 50-day cross and the 200-day moving average. It closed over its 200-day moving average for the first time since February. So you can make the case it trades over $30 in the coming days. I mean, hopefully in the coming days will be nice for the 28 strikes, but even if it's in the coming weeks, I have plenty of time on the November calls. Was able to lock some of the November strikes in for 50% to cover some costs later in the day, and I'll just continue to hold those. Don't be surprised if it breaks over 29 at the open. I might look for some like 31, 32 November strikes. I think it has 31 increments. Just in case, because right now the premiums are still somewhat inexpensive. You look at the 31s, maybe the 32s, they're 19 by 28 cents. Maybe I'll look at those. Because if it gets over $30 in a matter of a week, those 32 is going to be a couple 100%. So thought process there. But I like the HPQ setup. And again, some of this might be FOMO's the word of the day or the word of the week, even the word of the month. But some of these names, people looking for other ways to play this, the surge in some of the stocks. I mean, we saw Dell last week. And then you look at a name like HPQ and it hasn't rallied. And you can make the case that, it's a gap fill in March all the way up at $33. I'm not saying it gets there, but these are some of the things I'm like, okay, if it does, I want to be in a position to take advantage of that. So that's HPQ. And now NKLR, right? Thank you, J Rock, for bringing that up. I got some lotto calls at the end of the day on Monday. Then was able to close some out for 100% to cover some costs. Then yesterday it opened and the market was taking on a chin. I figured there's a possibility maybe it sells off. So it opened kind of flat, locked some more of the calls in for 100%, and then it started to rally. And it took some time. It was chopping around 17, 18. And then by 1 o'clock, it's like someone just hit the button and off to the races. 18, 19, 20, 21, almost up to $22. Locked some more of those 20 strikes in for 300%. And then I went and got some 25 lottos only because I'll probably lock the rest of the 20s in today. And then I don't want to have some kind of FOMO squeeze where this thing goes 30 plus. It's a $1 billion market cap. You've seen what's happened in this space right now. Funny enough, Wall Street Journal came out with an article this morning saying the bubble is not in AI, it's in the nuclear names, right? And these nuclear names, they have no revenue. And a lot of even like OKLO, which is $28 billion market cap, it doesn't have any revenue. And even that, it's the revenue, once it is generated, it won't be till like 2028, something like that. So obviously it's speculative in nature. So when you have a lot of speculation, it can lead to moves on both sides. I'm still buying. I think NKLR has a possibility to do some squeeze, but it's a high risk, high reward. It can run up to $30. It could dip it back down under $15 today, right? That's kind of the risk there. But now my risks are defined, locked a lot of calls in, riding with profits, have some freebies. So I'll continue to hold that because you never know. All right. So that's NKLR. Now Reddit, right? So Reddit, I don't know how many weeks in a row this is, but got some spec lottos, was chopping around 202. I figured it was going to do what it did last week, start to run when it ran all the way up to 211. Unfortunately, this time it didn't. Broke under $200. Then you had the POTUS tweet in the afternoon, added more pressure. Still like this one for a breakout. 10 straight sessions in this choppy trading range. You have to think at some point this breaks out. I'm not going to sit here and be naive to the possibility that this could be a bear flag. So that's a possibility as well. I don't think so, but I just think once it does break out, it's going to be a massive move. So I want to make sure I have some kind of position in. So that's kind of the thought process there on Reddit. So I'll continue to hold those. I'm not going to add any strikes because once it moves, it's not going to matter what strikes I'm in, at least for now. So that's Reddit. SERV Robotics, crazy stuff yesterday, right? I mean, I keep saying it's going to be a bumpy ride. I'll just continue similar to NKLR. My risks are defined, right? I already ride in freebies with plenty of profits. The only last position I want to lock in is the March 40s, right? Is that what I have? And then I'll just continue to ride. So you saw yesterday opens into 16s, or did it open? Maybe it opened, no, 1560, all the way down to $15. And then in the afternoon, it's at $17. So you're talking like a 13, 14% swing with no news, no catalyst. So it just continues to be a divisive, highly shorted name that's probably going to have some more bumps on the road. I think the road heads into the mid 20s and beyond. So I'll continue to hold those strikes. It's at $17 here today. I mentioned yesterday on the rant, if it gets close to 18 bucks, I might look for some spec lotto calls, just as some follow through. That serve, Joby over 18 bucks. What is it right now? Still looking for some more November strikes, maybe the 24, 25s. It's just, I don't know if I can trust this name right now. So I'm going to be very patient trying to add a strike. And if I do, I'll probably have a quick stop to lock it out if it shows weakness. And then some other names here. You know, unfortunately, MDB, it's like, I wouldn't call it stuck, but since it's earnings, very tight trading range, and now very tight Bollinger Bands. I have to think at some point, similar to Reddit, it's going to have some massive breakout. I think to the upside, the 335, 340s look interesting on a risk reward basis. So if the market, maybe it finds pressure at the open, dips, and then starts to bounce, I'll look for some MDB lottos possibly. That's MDB. And same with Dell, right? You know, I still you can make the case Dell's headed to 200 bucks before the year is out. So don't be surprised I had some strikes there. And then I keep talking about the great circle jerk. I don't know. I'm gonna have to make a start date for the great circle jerk. I don't know if it's Oracle's earnings date where they announce the 500 billion in RPO. I I also have to create an oh shit basket, right? Because if the market, if when it happens and the circle jerk, you know, there's no more jerks left to no one left in the circle to jerk. I want to be in a spot where I can take advantage because some of these moves are probably gonna be massive on the downside, and when they happen, it's gonna be very quick, right? So, you know, I keep talking about the SanDisk, the Seagates. You know, I was talking about Arista Networks. That the meat might be off most of the bone there on Arista, so I'll probably pass on that one. But yeah, definitely names. I have to make a list, and maybe over this weekend I'll figure out names, potential moves, strikes, things like that. All right, let's have a great day. I'll be back. Rock and roll.